Hey everyone, I'm Julie Barrett and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And I'm here today to talk to you about our third ever Washington State Legislator Scorecard. Wanted to break down for you sort of our process in how we create this so that as you're looking through the scorecard, you can understand and interpret the results for yourself. We did only choose 10 out of the several hundred bills that passed through Olympia this legislative session. And we take sort of a mixed bag of bills. We do choose a few that were highly publicized and were pretty much partisan in nature, meaning that all of the Republicans voted against these bills, such as the permit to purchase a firearm, which was House Bill 1163. But we've also included some bills on this scorecard that we messaged a lot on, and we really advocated for citizens to oppose and for legislators to oppose, but they didn't get a lot of publicity. And they are very important in distinguishing between sort of the more conservative legislators and those who may be more moderate or trending towards moderate, or perhaps playing some sort of political games because they might be in a district where they feel their seat is in jeopardy of being lost to a Democrat in an upcoming election. And so I'm going to go quickly through the 10 bills that are on our list. Now, because there's only 10 and several hundred did pass in Olympia this year, it's difficult to really capture that legislator's performance overall. But we put together the top 10 graphic for you guys because it does give a really good indication of who the most conservative legislators are in Olympia. There were only a few who got 100% on our scorecard, but there were several that got 90% and several that are not on this graphic that were on the scorecard. But we did choose the ones to put on the graphic that consistently vote conservatively on policy, as some of the 90%ers on the scorecard do tend to be more moderate in their votes overall, if we were to look at all of the bills. The first bill is House Bill 1531. This grants broad authority to the state over medical emergencies. So this one has gotten widely publicized. We're thinking potentially in the future, this could be used for vaccine mandates, mask mandates, even social distancing and other types of things, maybe having passports to be able to go into restaurants or businesses or event venues, that sort of thing. This is a bad bill, and it does grant very broad authority to the state government in a medical emergency. In the video description, I've got a link to the scorecard, and in that link with each of the bills, there's a link to the video that we put out on that bill. So if you want to learn more about each of these bills, you can click that link and you can go dive in on some of these individual videos. The next bill is House Bill 1163, which is the permit to purchase a firearm. You've probably heard about that one a lot, and that was very partisan in nature. All of the Republicans voted no on that, which is pretty typical with any firearm bills. We do see the Republicans unified in their opposition. The next bill is House Bill 1696, and this is reparations for historically marginalized people. It expands Washington's home ownership covenant program, giving forgivable loans to those historically marginalized people who qualify for those. The next one is House Bill 2015. This is, you probably heard a lot about this because it's gotten a lot of publicity in recent days, but this is a $100 million grant to recruit law enforcement officers. However, it is a tax, number one, and number two, in order for law enforcement departments to be eligible for these grants, their employees, their law enforcement officers have to go through a substantial amount of DEI types of trainings. The grants can also be used for social workers and other kinds of response personnel, not specifically law enforcement. So it sounds really good, but in reality, it is a woke police bill. It is very much in alignment with a leftist agenda. And this one had Democrats and Republicans both voting no, but it also had a lot of Republicans voting yes. Specifically in the Senate, there were a lot more in the Senate than in the House. There was only one in the House, which was Representative Rob Chase, which kind of surprised me because he's really conservative. So I'm not sure why he voted yes on this bill, and we haven't really reached out to him to ask. But I would say, as far as Rob Chase goes, he is overall a very conservative legislator. So I would be curious to hear from him why he voted yes on this particular bill. The next bill is one that got a ton of publicity, and that is House Bill 1296. A lot of people know of this bill as the bill that guts the Parental Bill of Rights. That's Initiative 2081, which it does do that. It does rewind the Parental Bill of Rights and reverts back to the previous existing Washington state laws, but it also does a number of other things. It adds a snitch line for people to report their school board directors who may not be in compliance with Washington state laws. Think Title IX, think of the LGBTQ history that they're forcing into the schools. That is what it's directed for. It's to force your conservative school board directors to go along with Washington's woke education laws. It also creates a Students' Bill of Rights, and it also expands the list of protected classes of students to sexual identity, sexual expression, gender identity, gender expression, homelessness status, immigration status, neurodivergent, and a few more. So that bill, House Bill 1296, went way off the rails. They threw a bunch of other stuff into it. They threw two Senate bills into House Bill 1296. And again, that is one where the Republicans were united in opposition to that bill. The next bill is House Bill 1971. This is the bill that allows providers to prescribe a 12-month stockpile supply of hormones for their patients, and there is no age requirements on this. This was something that was pushed by Planned Parenthood and by many of the LGBTQ activist groups. This had 10 Republicans in the Senate that voted yes on this. It was all of the Republicans in the House opposed it. But this is a very bad bill, especially in relation to House Bill 1296, where kids can get access to this stuff, not necessarily at school, but the school will set them up with people and facilities that can get them access to so-called gender affirming care. The next bill is one that you have probably heard a lot about. We put out calls to action on it. It's Senate Bill 5106. This is one of the first bills that Governor Bob Ferguson signed into law. This is for the state to recognize the Muslim holidays of Eid el-Fitr and Eid el-Adha, and hopefully I pronounced those correctly. A lot of people that I've seen talking about this particular bill on social media are blaming it all on Governor Ferguson. However, it received almost unanimous support in the Senate. The only senator who did not vote yes on this was Senator Jim McCune out of the 2nd Legislative District, and it did receive some support in the House. So it's important for people to understand that while Bob Ferguson did sign this bill into law, it was supported by Republicans and Democrats alike. And that is why it's so important for citizens to be engaged, and specifically for citizens to be talking with their Republican legislators, urging them not to vote for these types of policies. The next bill is Senate Bill 5189, and this is for competency-based learning. This was a really difficult bill for us to message on because it's really complex. But basically what it does is it makes pathways to graduation for students who are not able to meet the academic requirements to be on track for graduation. But it also puts a huge element of critical race theory, ethnic studies, whatever you want to call it, but they call it culturally responsive education. The framework for competency-based learning is based on this culturally responsive critical race theory agenda. It is not good for students. It does take away from that academic performance. This is one that we opposed. Our team testified in opposition to this bill, and it was supported by Democrats and Republicans alike. The next bill is Senate Bill 5192. This was a huge education funding bill. It is for material supplies and operating costs, also known as MSOC. We have opposed this bill for the last couple of sessions. Every session, they put forward another bill because they need more money for material supplies and operating costs because of the things that the legislature is doing that makes utilities and running the schools more expensive. So you've got the legislature kind of creating the problem, and then they're putting a band-aid on the problem. And so we have opposed this for the last several sessions, and the one that passed this session, Senate Bill 5192, has actually got an escalation clause in it to keep up with inflation. My guess is so that they don't have to keep coming back each legislative session like they have been for the past few sessions. This increased the funding for public education in Washington state substantially. And we really hoped that the Republicans who have historically voted for these policies, that they would oppose them and vote no against them this year, if for no other reason than the passage of House Bill 1296 and really removing parent access to critical parts of their education records. We really believe that OSPI should not get any more funding if they're going to say that parents don't have rights to all of their children's education records. And again, Senate Bill 5192 was supported very strongly by the Republicans in both the Senate and the House. The last bill on our list is one that we have talked a lot about, and you've probably heard about, is House Bill 1052. This expands Washington's hate crime laws. The expansion is supposed to make it easier for juries to convict people of hate crimes, which is based on perception of person's identities or expressions. And again, I've got more details and a video just on House Bill 1052 linked up in the description of this video. I hope that gives you some insight into how we put our scorecard together. If you have any questions for us, please do leave questions in the comment. You can also send an email to info@Conservative Ladies of America, and we are happy to answer any of your questions. You can also look up any bill by going to leg.wa.gov, type in the bill number, and then there will be a roll call for the House and the Senate on that bill info page. And I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to look up and see how your legislators and legislators around your state are voting on laws, because really more than what they might say on social media is what are they doing? How are they voting? And it's up to us as citizens to hold them accountable. So Washington folks, please do share this with your friends in Washington so that we can get an awareness from citizens as to what's going on in Olympia, and really encourage people to get engaged in the 2026 session. As a reminder, every bill that did not pass in 2025 will automatically be reintroduced in January of 2026. And of course, they will likely file hundreds of more new bills in 2026. So it's important to stay vigilant on bills that you may think are dead. I call them zombie bills because they will come back. So please do share this. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.